Hey Viva team, I just wanted to say good job last night. I'm really proud. You guys did really well for it being our first scrim. I do think there are a few things to work on, but the more we play together and kind of get used to each other's play styles, especially kind of in a different type of competitive setting, I think it'll get a lot better. Also, since I was able to record the entire scrim, this video is going to be long, so I'm going to timestamp it. So if you only want to see certain games, or if you have something that you wanted to look at that you had noticed in the game, there'll be timestamps for each one of the games, because this will be like a 40-minute video, I think is what it's going to turn out to be. So I haven't said anything up to this point, because overall we played really well here. The big theme I noticed throughout the entire scrim is our ult management. We are waiting to use ults until they use ults. I'm not saying dump everything at once, but it doesn't hurt to initiate a team fight with ults, because we just hold on to ours for so long until it's kind of lost, and it's a lot easier to use an ult when you already have point than when you're trying to take point. We also need to think about the fact that some characters get their ult charge super easy, particularly for the most part, like your supports. Mercy, Baptiste, they tend to get their ults a lot faster, so not that it's a throwaway ult, but you can definitely use it more liberally than like a Zarya, who does take a little bit longer to build ult charge. So here is just a personal preference. You can see that my Ryan gets purpled and charges out of immortality, so he dies to the soldier who's kind of behind us with Mercy res, and it can be a risky thing. If you res immediately right as they die, they're not expecting that, so they might be a little bit taken back and you might have time to get that res off. It's really situational though. That scenario right there, I feel like it was really 50-50 on whether you would have been killed or not had you done it right away. So right there, I'm not 100% sure what comms were sounding like. I think if we're going to use something like Soldier Ult or High Noon, it wouldn't hurt to call out that you're going to use it a little bit before you do. That way you can maybe get a shield if it's available. I think that was a good attempt at leading the team fight with an ult. We just didn't get it off, and that's also okay. It happens. So what I think is happening here is an issue with comms. You can see here we kind of split a bit and are a little bit all over the place. We should be listening to our main tank and where he is gonna go, and we should all follow. That way we don't get picked, because that ultimately is, I think, what is screwing us, is we're just not listening to each other. Another thing to keep in mind is they do have Amber, who's a really good Ana. So every team fight, at least one of us was purpled, which can make pushing super hard if some of your teammates can't get healing. While I do understand the pig pick for the Reaper, I do think running a Zarya into a good Ana is not a bad idea because she can cleanse those off. So you really have to weigh the risk and reward of running like a Roadhog or a Diva into a really dominant Rein Zarya comp. Another thing that we could talk about in practice is effective counterpicking. This Reaper, pretty much the entirety of the scrim, was causing a lot of problems. So while I understand some of like our DPS picks and our tank picks, I do think that there might be some other more efficient ways to counter problem characters. Like for the Reaper, maybe a Junkrat, a Torb might have been good to counter that Reaper as well. So I do like the Mei pick on this map. It can be good for walling off tanks when they try and push through. It can give us a little bit more time to kind of get things together. I do think a Torbjorn on this map for that Reaper solely would have been good as well, but this is not a terrible team comp as it is. Also, Ana, with where you're positioned, make sure that your sound effects are cranked up really high, that way you can hear things going on around you. I do know later on the Reaper comes in behind you. I believe it's right here. And with Reaper, footsteps are really loud, so you can hear them from far away. So just make sure that either your sound is cranked up all the way or you have your subtitles on, because characters, when they're just casually doing things, will have voice lines that will come up on your little subtitle thing. So here, just be very aware of what the enemy team is doing. Their Mercy is the biggest giveaway. You can see where she flew to the left, which told me there was something over there. To be honest, I thought it was the Reaper. I did not anticipate the Rein being right there. But just be really cognizant of what's going on around you. Mercy can be the biggest giveaway if you let her. So just be very aware of your surroundings. So there's a really good bubble here for my Zarya. It's really important that one, if not both of my tanks, have good reaction time when playing against an aggressive Rein. That way he can be punished for charging in, because if you both miss that opportunity, then he's going to pin in, get some picks, and actually get away with it. So generally speaking, on these types of maps, you'll see this on this and Hollywood and Hanamura. It might not hurt to hang out in your spawn for like a second or two while they spam the door. That way they don't get any ult charge. This is a good ult here on Tosh. It definitely keeps both my tanks alive in that grav, and makes it so that we don't have to back off too much with that ult. If you're ever wondering like when is a good time to use ults, on this map it's primarily made of corners, so it'll be on a corner 9 times out of 10. Unless if you need to save one of your teammates, or if they're being weirdly aggressive in a place that really isn't beneficial to them. So here the Mercy is rezzing behind us. If you're not really ult tracking, to me what that would tell me is that Ryan has his ult, because that would be a good position for him to shatter from, is behind us. So just be real aware of that if you're not actively ult tracking. Also, if you look here, my Junkrat sees that the Reaper is right there, so his positioning tells me again he has his ult, he's trying to position for it, he's up on high ground. If I remember right, he doesn't use his ult this entire time, which is a little confusing. But just be aware of people's positioning, especially their DPS, because it can give away whether or not they have their ult. So this is a good ult for Eric. It did kind of get him away from our team. Hog ulting Reaper ult can be a little dangerous, because sometimes you don't ult them the right way and it ends up killing one of your teammates. But overall this was pretty good. So we're down to the last few seconds of the round. It's still really important to keep in mind positioning. You can see where I'm in third person view, so I can see around, but you can see that Reaper TP. I'd be shocked if he had it again, but I'm not 100% sure why he would go up there if he didn't already have it, so that's just something to be aware of. Overall, though, that was a really good game from our team. We were really close to being able to cap that. One thing you need to be aware of on this map is if one of your teammates gets pushed onto the ground like my Reinhardt is here, you want to drop down with him, because if he is alone there, he's basically a dead man if the rest of my team stays on high ground. Generally, when the card is this far under anyways, you don't really want to be up on high ground anymore, because you're just not going to be able to hold them as effectively as you would right here. So with Mercy on this map, like towards the cap point, a good place to be standing, my team isn't there at the moment, but a good place to stand is right there, kind of at that corner when they drop down. That way you can see people coming in through the ship if they are, and you'll be able to see them coming over this ship. So instead of being positioned where you are, I would have stepped back. Right here, the Reaper is diving my Baptiste, and then he uses his fade to get out. For 2 seconds, he had no abilities. That would have been the time to punish him for that. But he still didn't get any picks from that push, so it didn't super matter. Here we had really good ult management, and used it to keep them from killing us and pushing point. General rule of thumb is like use 1 or 2 ults. That way for every team fight you'll have something, and you're never stuck in a position where they're pushing you and just popping ults to win. This is just kind of the whole thing of if my tanks are pushed up, we should all be pushed up, because we just kind of let them get farmed there. So if Diva ever pushes you basically alone and you're with your Mercy, just go ahead and swing at her and try and get her out of mech as soon as possible, because Mercy actually doesn't out-heal a Diva, so the more you let her pick at you, the more likely it is that you're gonna die. I just want to say good job on positioning here, everyone. Everyone's in a really good position and they're not really putting themselves at risk to get picked. So, good job. So here my team is going up top, which generally speaking is not a bad idea. When the other team has a Junkrat, you kind of want to avoid putting yourself in these bottleneck situations. There are a couple of them on this map alone, and then you'll see it on like Numbani when you go up top. Just based off of the amount of damage that my tanks are taking, I believe their Junkrat is about 70% to tire, so you just want to be aware of how much you're feeding the Junkrat. Here it ended up working out because they were able to get their DPS off of the high ground, but we still don't end up taking point, and now they have tire. So here with my Torbjorn and my Reinhardt dead, my team just needs to play slow, don't pop ults. You can be out there, just don't pop any ults. That way when your teammates get back, you can pop ults and win team fight like you see here. I believe we had already used dragons at this point, and I think I would have held on to that, but in the end we ended up being able to push it a little bit further. On this map, if you have a Junkrat, starting off here instead of that front little alleyway where everyone spams is not a bad idea, just because you do have an easy way to get out because they have to come up to get you, and the angle that you're at allows you to get a little bit more ult charge. If I had to guess, they probably heard the trap go off, and so they knew our Junkrat was there, so he didn't get as much ult charge. But generally speaking, if you're a Junkrat, being up there is better than being down in the alleyway. With our team comp, if you trust him enough, I would damage boost the Baptiste to get the Pharah, just because he's going to be able to get it the easiest. If your Baptiste doesn't have good aim, then I wouldn't even bother. But generally speaking, pocket whoever you think can take care of the Pharah the easiest. With the Pharah being as much of a problem as she was for that first point, if I were Mercy, I would have gone over to my soldier over there and damage boosted him. For that first push, the Pharah is not going to see the soldier there, so she's going to try and spam us from behind, not knowing that the soldier is behind her. Overall, that was pretty good. I would say the only difference is they had more ults than we did whenever they were pushing, which I could have guessed that. I don't believe they used any ults to get first point, so they would have gone in having at minimum 4 of their ults to push that point. this is another one of those maps where you can kind of hang out and spawn for a second or two. That way you're not feeding ult charge to whoever's spamming the door. Also, when I was specking, I could hear someone top right. I kind of thought it was just their Reaper. It turned out to be their Reaper and their Reinhardt trying to get a cheeky charge. So generally I would turn like your music volume and general volume down, but then there should be a side effects volume, and I would keep that cranked up so that you can hear certain characters behind you, because some of them have really loud footsteps. Or you can turn on, like I said, your little subtitles, because some characters will just have certain voice lines when they're not really doing anything, and it'll come up on your subtitles. So when pushing top right, you want to be very cognizant as to whether you're spending too much time in that little hallway. It's not this push, but I do notice it in other pushes when we go top right. And we spend a lot of time in this hallway not really doing anything productive other than feeding them ult charge. So just be very aware of that and when that's happening to you. Whenever you see people up on top right there, it is a good idea if you go beneath them, just because they can't pick at your HP as much if you're directly beneath them. So again, the Reaper's positioning here tells me that he probably has ult, but we knocked his HP down far enough where he didn't feel confident using it. So just be sure to make that mental note. Reaper probably has his ult.